Tyrese Maxey. Are you willing to trade Tyrese Maxey to the Portland Trailblazers for Dame Lillard?
You are Locked On 76ers, your daily Philadelphia 76ers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On 76ers your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more right now. New customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets, guaranteed. Visit fanduel.com/locked on to get started. What's up, Mitch? How you doing, man?
I'm good, Keith. Man, how are you, brother?
Oh, I can't complain. How you guys doing? I'm Keith Pompey, co-host of Locked On 76ers, and I got NBA extraordinaire, longtime beat writer, Mr. Knowledgeable John Mitchell back in the building. And we got a lot to talk about today. What we want to talk about, three pretty good topics. The first one, Tyrese Maxey. Would you include Tyrese Maxey in a deal to the Portland Trailblazers for Dame Lillard? Second thing I want to talk about is Paul Reed or PJ Tucker. Now, there's some talk that Paul Reed is going to play next to Joel Embiid this season. But does that mean like you are comfortable with starting him at the 4 in place of PJ Tucker? So Mr. Mitchell and I are going to talk about that. In the last segment, we're going to talk about Tobias Harris. Is or do you think that Tobias Harris will remain a 76er all season? Will Tobias Harris last through the trade deadline? So we got a lot to talk about, John. A lot. But Tyrese Maxey. Now, Dame Lillard, here's the thing. If you go out there and you get Dame Lillard with Joel Embiid, you know, Dame Lillard will bring everything that you thought that James Harden was supposed to bring, right? Dame Lillard is a lethal scorer. You know, he can do a lot of different things. With Joe, his defense will be better with Joel behind him, right? Joel will take up for a lot of deficiencies. I think if you get Dame Lillard, then the Sixers' championship aspirations will catapult, right?
Mm-hmm.
However, are you willing to give up Tyrese Maxey to get him?
Yeah, that's one of those all or nothing deals. You know, it's the only way that they will even talk to the Sixers is if Maxey is included, and understandably so. You know, if I look at it and I see the 76ers window closing very quickly now. You know, I think if you make that deal, you stand the chance of keeping Joel, because my sense is very soon Joel's going to be asking out of here. And I think if Dame is here, then you have somebody who, again, like you said, is better than a James Harden. You know, they're matched out with James Harden. They know that they're a second round team. They've done it 2 years in a row. With Dame, they become a legitimate threat to end this 40-year drought of not winning the championship. They legitimately enter the conversation as a team that could win it. But my God, you're giving up the asset that Tyrese Maxey is, the player that he is. You know, you get the feeling that he's just scratching the surface of what he can be. You know, he could potentially be a 28, 29, maybe even that 30-point scorer alongside Joel. But if you're going all in and you want to circumvent the possibility that Joel is starting to ask to get out of here in the next year or two, you might have to go ahead and pull that trigger. It was as regrettable as many young talented players that the Sixers have had in house. You know, the Mikal Bridges, and now Tyrese Maxey. You know, you're saying we're all in for a championship, which is what the was the line when they acquired James Harden, that we're all in. We quickly found out that James Harden wasn't that guy.
Yeah, the only thing, yeah, you're saying a lot of things that make a lot of sense, and that would be the thing. If you get Dame Lillard, you're basically saying the time is now, right? The only thing is, Dame. We all know where Dame wants to go, right? We all know he wants to go to Miami, right?
Right.
And I think that whoever makes a trade for him, if they do make a trade for him, they got to sit down with the agent, the good ones. They have to sit down with Dame. They got to do a lot of stuff because, teams aren't willing to give up a lot for a player who doesn't want to be with them, right?
Right.
That player
Right.
could make things difficult. Like Dame could make things difficult for the new team shortly after his arrival, forcing another trade. So as a result, the team essentially would surrender a lot for what could become basically a short-term rental.
Right.
That being said, one would think that Portland, would do well by trading Lillard to the Miami Heat because that's the team he wants to go to, right?
Right.
But at the same time, now when we talk about Lillard, right? Lillard, you gotta be sure what you want with him because Lillard has 4 years and 216.2 million remaining on his contract. Meanwhile, Embiid, see this is a lot, right?
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Embiid has 4 years, 213.2 million right left because his contract extension kicks in this year. So struggling to remain healthy, you never know how much longer Embiid is going to play.
Right.
So getting Lillard to help facilitate the Sixers win now approach makes sense from that standpoint because
Right.
you got to win now.
Right.
With that duo, the team will have a 3-year window to capture an NBA title.
Right.
In addition to his unlimited shooting range, Lillard doesn't dominate the ball as much as Harden does. So that's
Right.
good for Embiid. Now, when you look at Lillard, he is coming off arguably the best campaign of his 11-year career, averaging 32.2 points on 46.3% shooting, including 37.1% from beyond the arc, right? He also averaged 7.3 assists and 4.8 rebounds. He scored 71 points against the Houston Rockets on February 26th, 60 versus the Utah Jazz on January 25th, and 50 against the Cavs on January 12th. He scored 40 or more points 15 times, James. John,
Yeah.
I called you. My bad. But look, when you think of all that stuff, right, bro? You say to yourself, you got to do that deal.
You
You
do.
have
You
you
do.
have to.
You
So
do.
when you think of you got to do it, but the thing is, you got to understand though, it's all or nothing.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, if you do get if you do trade Tyrese Maxey,
Right.
you don't win one. If you don't win one,
It's a
and
short window.
Dame son,
Yeah.
woo, that's not
Yeah.
good, bro. It's not
Yeah.
good.
And the bad thing about it is, it's you said all or nothing. It's been nothing for so long that you almost say you have to take. Yeah, because they're no longer sitting in the catbird seat with all these assets they once had, a few years ago. They have to win now.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at it, what is Tyrese is what, 22, 21? So
Yeah. Yep. 22,
yeah,
bro.
so he's got a lot of years. He's going to get better. But you know how it's because it's a win now league. You recognize that you have a generational type talent in Joel Embiid. You also recognize
Yeah.
that
And but
that he's starting to become a little bit uncomfortable. That he's testing the waters mentally and publicly. He's saying he wants to win a championship here or somewhere else. So, as well as I do, Keith, when guys start putting that stuff kind of out there, they don't put that out there unintentionally. They just don't.
But here's the thing. Yeah, you're right. But see, here's the thing about the Maxey thing. So, like you talked about, the Sixers would be giving up a up and coming 22-year-old up and coming player for a star. Now, this is where you get cautious. For a star who played in a combined 87 games the past 2 seasons, right?
Yeah.
So, like Embiid, Lillard is winding down. I mean, he's winding down. And it's hard to say how many more seasons he has left to play at an elite level.
Right.
But the Sixers' best chance is to win now. Yet Maxey is the best asset the Sixers have to offer.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't justify trading away your best young talent for players who's hell-bent on playing for the Heat. So it's one of those things, like, it goes back. You got to have a serious conversation with Dame, Joel in the room, and Dame's agent, the Goodwin brothers, because his agents, because you don't want to trade away your best young asset for a guy who's trying to get out of here next week.
Yeah, because and you have to ask yourself: are we good with Dame? Are they good enough to win in 2024? To win it all in 2024? Because, like you said, the window is going to be very short. We know that Joel is 29, 30, but he's an old, let's be quite honest, he's an old 29, 30. And Dame is playing as well as he has played. We've seen him play in years, but, is he going to come to an immediate cliff and just fall off, or is it going to be gradual? And again, is he using the 76ers to get somewhere else? So, their front office is really in a unique situation. They've got to make smart, prudent decisions. And like you said, it can't be a situation where they make these decisions without having everybody at the table and knowing exactly what the goals of Damian Lillard are, what the goals of Joel are, and the realistic possibility that they can not just get to the Eastern Conference Finals, but get to the finals and win.
Yeah.
It's all or nothing, because I think in another few years, either way, I think the Sixers are headed for a dark time. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but we're at the end. The process is pretty much over, and we're at the point now where if they don't do it now, it's been 40 years in the wilderness, man. It's almost biblical.
It's almost biblical. Yeah. It's rough. It's rough. I mean, it's been a rough time for the Sixers. But you know what? When we get back from this commercial break, I want to talk to you about Paul Reed, PJ Tucker, who you riding with, and if you had to decide who was going to start, who would you go with? So we'll talk about that when we get right back. Is that cool, bro?
Absolutely.
All right. Now, I want y'all to snap into this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get into the action. This app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. And I want y'all to visit FanDuel and include money lines, props, etc. around your team, right? And that's what's going to happen. Well, Mitch, so here you go. You got the choice. Now, you got B-Ball Paul, a young up-and-coming guy who has never really – he hasn't been a full-time starter in the NBA, right? Times where, he didn't play as much as people felt. But then you also have a longtime NBA vet and PJ Tucker, who's won a championship, who's a selfless player, right?
Who's also close to 40.
Well, I was gonna get into that, but not right then and there. But so my question is, all right, who do you go with? Is it in the starting lineup? Do you start PJ Tucker or B-Ball Paul?
I think
If you had a choice.
If I had a choice, I like B-Ball Paul's energy off the bench. I really do. But I think now with PJ Tucker, what is he really bringing to this roster? I mean, every now and then he has a tendency to just go AWOL for the 76ers. And when he was brought under here in the auspices that that they were going to get tougher with him, and that was after the 76ers bowed out to Miami in 6 games a year before last. So Joel, who was being guarded by PJ Tucker, said, "Hey, we need an enforcer." And I like PJ Tucker, so they brought him here. When they brought him here, I said, "Okay, he's seen his best days. He is a savvy player, but if I'm choosing between PJ Tucker and B-Ball Paul right now, I go for the guy who can give you the 10 rebounds. I go for the guy who can slow wing players down better, and that appears to me right now. He seems a little more versatile. He can't step out and shoot the 3 like PJ can do occasionally and sporadically. But if I'm choosing between those two guys, I go with B-Ball Paul just because he's a better defender, and he's got an upside now. And you figure out what to do. Unfortunately, PJ Tucker is falling into that area now where it's like you figure out what to do with him. You don't guarantee that because go ahead. I'm sorry, Keith.
No, go ahead. Finish. My bad.
Yeah, because so often you see him out there, and you see it more than anybody, where it's like, I hate that line that he does. Well, this is the guy that does the dirty work. There are times when that's true, but the 76ers need production out of him. They need production out of that spot. Grabbing a guy's shirt as he tries to get around a screen and the referee misses it is not exactly what the 76ers need out of that position. So I say I prefer B-Ball Paul. Of course, you like him because he is that energy guy off the bench. But if B-Ball Paul can start developing somewhat of a 12 to 13, I know that's asking a lot. If he can develop a 12 to 13-foot jumper, I think he takes a step in the developmental ladder.
Yeah, the thing that gets me with it, and I do like what I guess I'm in the minority a little bit when it comes down to PJ Tucker. Like when you look at the 76ers team and you have a guy like James who's such ball dominant, and then you had Maxey and you had Joel and you had like Tobias a little bit. Tobias wasn't getting any, and he wasn't getting any plays ran for him or anything. So you needed another guy that you said is just going to set the picks and do everything. So I kind of I didn't have a problem with him not scoring a lot of points and everything, right? I didn't. Nor did I have a problem because I knew James was going to be extremely ball dominant. Right. And I knew that James had a comfort level with playing with PJ, right? Mm-hmm. But now when you look at it, PJ was also the small ball center. Now, PJ is 38 years old. PJ is 6'5". Paul Reed is 24 years old. Paul Reed is 6'9". And not only that, I feel like when you look at the 76ers bench, I feel like that, Mo Bamba, the knock on him in the past was he was lazy, right? He didn't get after it. But when you look at it right now, Paul Reed, Mo Bamba, and Joel Embiid all have to play, in my opinion. When you look at what they bring, all 3 of them have to play. Mo Bamba is a elite rim protector. He can shoot the three.
Mm-hmm.
Paul Reed is a guy who's extremely versatile. He's 6'9". He was a three in high school, and then he
Right.
became a four in college, and then he became a backup center in the pros. And
Mm-hmm.
I just feel like, the fact that when you look at guys who need to play, I feel like that would be a better option, right? I do. I
Right.
feel like that would be a better option if they go that way. Now, the only problem, John, and you know that this stuff can be real, is I
Mm-hmm.
know that PJ is old, but there's a lot of guys who you got to see how they're going to deal with by
Yeah.
not playing. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? And it's
Yeah.
going to be disruptive to the locker room or anything, So
I think
that's what it is.
I see where you're going with that, kid. I think he is, and you're around him more than anybody in the media, would know the answer to this better. But I always, the one thing I get about PJ and that I feel about him is that he's always been professional. He's always been professional. But like you said, you get to the end of your career, and you're in that last gasp position. How do you respond? Because the NBA is that one league where guys push back more than any league I've ever seen. When it's like, okay, there's a changing of the guard here, and like you said, you got to get him, Mo Bamba, and obviously Joel on the floor as much as possible. I mean, he's a better defender. Um, he yeah, I understand, and he's not ball dominant either. I think he understands the pecking order. Players have to be in the league for a minute before they get a grasp, and I think part of that is Tyrese Maxey, being forced to defer to James Harden as much. But that's a story for a different day. Um, but I do think that it's you figure out what to do with PJ at this point in his career.
Yeah, I
And
do.
you.
But there was a lot of people who felt like last year's coaching staff, like a lot of them,
Mhm.
they kept with PJ because they were concerned with how benching PJ would, alter the
Right,
locker room a little bit. So
right.
so that thing is real. Now again, he is a great team player, great guy. I like PJ a lot. You know, I mean, I think he defers to stuff. He helps teammates out. But
Mhm.
again, like you got to understand something. This is a guy who came here and took the money, but he could have
Right,
stayed at Miami. But they were
right.
telling him, "We need you. You come here." And then all of a
Yeah,
sudden, last year they got you. "Well, are we going to bring you off the bench?" Like that wouldn't have went over well. And
right.
and now you look at it. Here's a guy that's extremely loyal to Harden and everything like that. And you figure like if Harden's traded, he's probably going to be going out there with him, maybe, right? But
Mhm,
but at the
mhm.
same time, again, that's another thing for another story. But at the same time, it's like, it just see what it's like. I mean, because if what is his role going to be? Like maybe they can say, look, this is what we'll do. You won't start, but you'll come in, you do this, you do that. We'll prolong, you get you ready for the playoffs. Now, if
Right.
they can get, maybe it works out well. But I'm here to tell you, there was some fear last year within the coaching staff that if he would have came off the bench, it would have messed some things up.
Yeah,
Because one could argue that Tobias was better at the four, and Matisse Thybulle could have been the starting three, and they would have been better defensively because
mhm.
they struggled. But then we're looking at it, PJ's getting a year older,
Yeah,
Paul Reed's getting older, and pretty soon that baton has to be passed, right? And if you look at Paul, yeah, Paul's going to do certain things, but he's also a guy that you don't have to run plays for. It's just a
right.
matter of him being in the right place, right time. Now, the only difference is, and Paul's been working on his three, where you had PJ out in the corner. I don't
Mhm.
know if Paul is good in that and
I don't think so.
playing. Nah, he's
Yeah,
not.
You're not
So
going to space the floor.
that's
You're not going to space the
yeah.
floor, Paul.
So that's the problem. That's the only problem
Mm-hmm.
that they may have with the spacing between, him and Joel. Now we all know Joel likes going wherever Joel likes going, but
Right.
that's the problem. That's the problem. But
And you know, Keith, that's all on. Excuse me. That's Nick Nurse's job. He was he's got some things to figure out.
yeah,
He's got some, and the time is quickly coming where he's going to have to do those things.
yeah, you're right. You're right. Well, look, y'all, when we get back, we'll talk about Tobias Harris. Tobias Harris, one of those things, do we think that he'll be here or not? Right. When we get right back, real quick, when we get right back. All right, Mitch, Tobias.
Mm-hmm.
There was, talk, there was teams during the draft that really inquired about Tobias. They wanted him, thinking that the Sixers would give him up. The Sixers are looking at it like they had to make a deal that was going to be worth their offer, because they're going to, they know Tobias is coming off the books, and it would have to be another guy getting an expiring contract, the whole nine, this and that. My thing is with Tobias Harris, he could be a guy who, let's face it, if the Sixers are struggling or they don't do as well as they can, he could be a guy that the Sixers could, at the trade deadline, ship to another team, get some assets for, trying to playoff push or a championship push, right? Do you feel like Tobias is going to be here throughout the whole season?
I don't. I think every year it's, are they going to trade Tobias? Are they going to move him? Is he playing up to the salary? The answer to that question is obviously no. He was a free agent at the right time, at the perfect time for him to get the money that he got. But I do believe that Tobias is viewed around the league as a solid guy who can be a very good addition to a team that's making a push. And if you find that team that's willing to take that on, and let's be quite honest, this money's monopoly money for these teams. Tobias in the right situation can be an asset for a team that's trying to, get over the top. So I have a feeling that as the trade deadline draws closer, teams will be poking around Tobias Harris. That's my feeling.
Oh yeah, that's definite. Teams are going to poke around him. Yeah, that's definitely going to happen. And then, for the Sixers, that's something you got to think long and hard about, because let's be honest, like, do you want him to walk in free agency? Like, if you decide not to bring him back, do you want him to walk in free agency and you don't get anything back? Or do you want to trade him and you can get some assets? I think that they would be willing to trade him, or they would prefer to trade him to get the assets. Now, again, if this team is playing at a level to where they think that they can make it, in the playoffs and get to the Eastern Conference Finals, then that's going to be one of those things where they're going to have to keep them unless they can get something better, right?
Yeah.
Unless they can get something better. But to me personally, I don't feel as if a team has something better, I don't feel like they would trade him to the Sixers for Tobias. And that's not a knock on Tobias, or anyone. It's just that, you're bringing Tobias in to make an upgrade, not to say, hey, we just want Tobias.
Right.
So that's the thing. So, yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. But I also think that we have a better idea of how things happen based off how the whole James Harden thing shakes out early on, right?
Right.
And we can see how that works out and how everything goes. So
Yeah,
that's
he's
how.
like I said, I mean, every year it seems like a player, it's what's going to happen with Ben Simmons. Now it's what's going to happen with James Harden to make those dominoes start to fall. It's a bad position to be in for a team to be dependent on that.
No doubt, no doubt. Well, look, Mitch, I want to thank you for joining today's show. I want to thank y'all for listening. I want y'all to know that this podcast is free and available wherever you get your podcasts at. You can also go to the YouTube channel. And once you go to the YouTube channel, Locked On 76ers, click on the Liberty Bell, you become a new subscriber and you get notified when a new show drops, right? So again, Mitch, thanks for being on there. You always dropping knowledge. I love having you on.
Love being on.
Yeah, and I want to thank y'all for listening, and also want y'all to have a great work week. All right, peace.